Hello, the following is a presentation given by Captain Dicks Nelms, age 99 and 3/4, about flying a B-17 bomber in World War II. Captain Nelms flew 35 combat missions in Nazi-occupied airspace in the European theater. This following presentation is about that. This is his first presentation since the pandemic. It's filmed on December 22nd, 2022.
Yeah, I am Dicks Nelms. I'm from the B-17 pilot in the 8th Air Force, 710th Squadron, 447th.
Excuse us.
Am I talking too loud?
No, you're fine.
And based in England during World War II. In 1944, we flew 35 combat missions into Germany and Nazi-occupied territory. Back then, Japan, Germany, and Italy were not our friends. They're not friendly democracies. Japan had armed our fleet at Pearl Harbor, killing over 2,400 men. And we declared war on Japan the following day. Then, a few days later, Japan's allies, Germany and Italy, declared war on us. So there we were, unprepared, right in the middle of what was to be the largest, most destructive conflict ever to occur on this planet. I, like thousands of others, volunteered. I enlisted in the Army Aviation Cadet Corps, was accepted, went through 9 months of pilot training, got my wings and commission, and was assigned to the B-17. We trained in North Texas, in the Panhandle, for about a month as a crew. We have a couple, some up here. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And then flew over to the UK, ending up near a small village called Rattlesden, Suffolk County, where the 447th was based. After some indoctrination and practice missions, we became operational. We'd be asleep in a hut, a Quonset hut, what they call them Mason huts in England. And sometimes as early as 3 o'clock in the morning, the CQ, the charge of quarters, would open the door, turn the light on, and start shouting at us. Up and at 'em, fly boys, rise and shine, up your back and out of the sack, and things like that. Come on, go, go. One day our bombardier got tired of it, and he threw his shoe at him. And he wasn't trying to hit him, it went skidding across the floor. It was kind of a sign of defiance. But when he walked out, he says, "I hope your accuracy improves somewhat later today." And it always had some jokes going over there, thank goodness. But after preparing ourselves for combat, we'd go down and try to eat an early breakfast. And then the briefing room, where we would be told where we were going, why, what kind of bombs we'd be carrying, the weather report, and the position each one of us would be flying in an 18 aircraft formation. We usually flew 18 aircraft with 3 squadrons of 6 each, and the lead squadron and I squadron below, all 18 going together. Trucks would be waiting outside to take us to our planes that were positioned all the way around the field. We'd climb aboard, go through an early cockpit check, and start up the engines, check them out, and give the crew the sign to pull the chocks out in front of the wheels, and release the brakes and taxi out to the takeoff runway. The group leader would be all poised, ready to go, waiting for a sign from the tower. When the right time came, the tower would shoot off a yellow flare, and he would start his takeoff run. And we'd follow about every 15 or 20 seconds and slowly form above the field in the positions that we were designated to take. At a particular time, we'd be climbing all the time amazing speed of 500 feet a minute. And of course, we're pretty loaded. Now, the B-17, I probably should go into that first here. I have a model. The one I flew was silver. They stopped painting it. But we have 104-foot wingspan, 75 feet long, 4 radial supercharged engines, could carry 13 50 caliber machine guns, over 8,000 pounds of bombs, and 3,600 gallons of 100 octane gasoline. A crew of 10 had their bombardier and navigator in the nose, the 2 pilots up on top in the cockpit, but directly behind them is the top turret gunner. Then as we go back, we have the bomb bay doors that open. These do not. And the radio room with the radio man, the ball turret gunner down underneath, and a waist gunner on each side and the tail. So you got 10 men, lots of gunners, which was great. But anyway, after getting awakened at 3 o'clock, we'd head down and try to eat breakfast and go into the briefing room like I mentioned. And we're climbing over the field, heading out over the North Sea. Now, before D-Day invasion, that area that we would cross in Europe, usually the Netherlands, would be Nazi occupied. So they would generally fire up a few anti-aircraft shells. We didn't worry too much about it. It was usually 88 millimeters and not too accurate. But kind of a precursor of what was going to be facing us later on. The lead navigator had spots marked on his chart called charted flak, where anti-aircraft fire had been previously reported. And it's up to him to miss those spots as we head towards the target. Now, all the time we're going, we'll get occasional anti-aircraft fire from mobile guns on the ground. This is all occupied, you understand. We're going through France and probably heading into Germany. And we would be headed for a target called the IP, the initial point. The actual target, we would not aim at it at all. We would not want the Germans to know where we were going, so that would be the very last thing that we'd do. But when we got to the initial point, the lead squadron would turn and head to the target. The bomb bay doors would open. We would all open our bomb bay doors. And it would be up now to the bombardier. The lead aircraft has been flying on autopilot all this time. So he turns the control of the autopilot over to the Norden bomb site. So as the bombardier will make corrections on his vertical crosshair, picking up the target, the airplane will follow and take those corrected headings. Pretty good for 78, 79 years ago. And here we go, all stacked in formation as well as we can do, heading down the bomb run, when all of a sudden the sky starts exploding around you. Everywhere you look, you see black puffs of smoke going off. When one's close and you fly through the concussion, you hear pieces of steel tearing holes in the aluminum skin of your airplane. The Nazis would be firing 88 and 105 millimeter shells up at you from 4 and 6 gun batteries down below. You had to figure out what to do. You're helpless. And I would concentrate on my training, keep soft hands on the controls, and keep my position in the formation. And you can do that if you can keep fear under control. That was the big thing. And I had ways of doing it, and it worked out pretty well. I'm skipping ahead, but I want to go into this fear thing. We had a shell burst, it couldn't have been 50 feet in front of us. Went right through the concussion. Hear that sickening sound of pieces of flak coming through the plane. And my brain, your brain becomes your enemy out there. Your brain tells you, if that had gone off a second later, I'd be on my way down. This may be the day I don't go home, things like that. I said, isn't it great that thing went off when it did? Everything's okay. They're both true. One's going to keep you under control. And I always try to find something positive. And it wasn't too hard. I had a chaplain tell me once, he said, you know, how did it go today? I said, oh, we picked up a couple of holes, but it was okay. And he said, well, listen, when you're up there, you have no control over where those shells are going to explode up there. But you do have control of what's going on up here. And that helped. That helped a lot. It's a Russian roulette. It doesn't matter whether you're a good pilot, an excellent pilot, or what. You have no control over where those shells are going to explode. And you just have to resign yourself that this is important. And I'm not going to be the first one to blink. and we just go right through. Anyway, the bombardier is sighting on the target. And he has that Norden bomb sight is almost like a computer. He has information he has to put into the sight, like our altitude, our speed, as far as he can tell, the ground speed, the types of bombs we were carrying. In other words, if we're carrying 500-pound general purpose bombs, which we usually do, they take, when they drop, they take a parabolic arc, a certain arc, and that all has to be figured into the Norden bomb sight, because we're 5 miles up, 25 to 27,000 feet. And I forgot to mention 50 below zero inside the airplane. But if he puts all the information in there correctly, and he gets these crosshairs on that target, it's in a lot of trouble. Because they just come right down with the target. And at the right time, out come the bombs of the lead aircraft. One of them, the smoke bomb. Others have bright ribbons tied to them. So none of the other bombardiers have an excuse for not bombing and letting them go at the same time. And we'd have usually 2 different ways of bombing. One would be salvo, where everything, boom, all 216 bombs all come down at once. The other would be, as you've probably seen pictures where they come out about every half second. They call it train. And it depends on the target. If the target is an oil refinery where you have storage tanks all around, or a railroad marshalling yard, it's good to have them come out and go along the ground. If it's a factory, it's nice to just take it out. As far as our targets were concerned, I tell people that we bombed anything that helped Hitler wage war. Nothing else. We didn't want to just hit a city for the fun of it or anything like that. Excuse me. And but the bombs are out, and we're in, like I mentioned, 6 aircraft groups, and we have to make sure that we don't slide above each other and bomb down. So we are spread out a little bit, and a lot of the bombs are going to be hitting out here somewhere, not the target. But how many 500-pound bombs does it take to take out a factory? Not very many. And it would be a tenth of a second fuse. So they'd go in just a little bit and then explode, so, maximum destruction. Should I be saying this with the Christmas song coming on? But we would get courage from realizing the important job we had there. It was almost like we're the selected few. Let's go. And the RAF, the job they did before we got there, the Royal Air Force, they showed tremendous bravery. And the British people were behind us all the time. So we really, if somebody got to where he could not handle fear, they'd send him home. He wouldn't be just honored or anything like that. They'd just say, this isn't where you belong. But on the way back, now, I want to get into one of my favorite targets, oil refineries. It meant so much, and it was easy to hit. Because, like I mentioned, you have your refinery, and then you have gasoline storage tanks all around. And we usually go as a combat wing, where you have maybe 2 or 3 airplanes all going to that same target. And the first one over would usually be bombing with the 500-pound general purpose bombs to scatter things around and start fires. But the guy behind would be thermite and magnesium bombs that would light it up like a torch. If you know about thermite, you cannot put it out. You can't extinguish it. Put it underwater, it doesn't make a bit of difference. And it would be our favorite target because it meant so much. And when you turned to go home, you could look down and see that black smoke coming up. Yeah. But it meant so much. It meant fewer submarines, fewer tanks, fewer trucks, fewer Luftwaffe coming up and trying to shoot us down. And see, we were strategic. We were not tactical, although we did have some tactical missions. But when we bombed, it was that Germany would feel the bombing maybe a month or 2 later, where they were running out of gas, in other words. And they did. We put them out of gas. They started manufacturing their own, and it wasn't as good, and they couldn't do it as fast. But and then we'd head home and land. If anybody was wounded, he'd fire red flares out of the plane, and everybody would stand back and let him land first, things like that. And then we go through debriefing, where we would be questioned by the intelligence people. And it was kind of important. In other words, if we'd had a fighter attack, they'll ask about it. Did they just come through and fire and did not engage and go away? Or did they come back and keep shooting at you? And they would compare that with the same questions and answers maybe 2 or 3 weeks before. And before they might say, yeah, they came back, gave us a lot of trouble. And we would say, no, they just took off and went somewhere else. That meant our bombing oil refineries was having an effect. So they put everybody kind of worked these things together. And if we took out a target, our plane had a camera on the bottom. And as soon as we landed, the Jeep would run up and they would grab that camera and take off and develop it. And decide on whether or not we had taken that factory out or whatever it was, or whether we have to go back. Maybe they can repair it and we'll have to go back and do it again, or whether we just plain missed it, which was very seldom. And all these things kind of worked together. It was wonderful, and we had great commanding officers. I want to tell something that's not combat, but as long as he's not with us anymore, and I'm not going to mention his name, I went over as a co-pilot. I did not want to fly that airplane. I got no training on it. And the first pilot, they called him at that time, was not a very nice person. He drank a lot. I often would fly almost the whole mission as a co-pilot, and he wouldn't wake up or do something later. But I got tired of it, so I went to the commanding officer and I said, "Sir, do you think I could check out as a first pilot, get my own crew?" And he said, "Well, is everything okay?" And I wasn't going to tattle on this guy, but I said, "Oh yes, I just think I'm ready." He pushed his papers aside. He said, "Let's go." And we got in a B-17, took off. I shot 2 landings, and he said, "Do you mind co-piloting for a while until I can get you your own crew?" And I said, "No, sir." And easy. And I went from right seat to left seat. I was now in command of 9 guys. And that was combat, you know. It had to be done. But so I flew the rest of my missions as a aircraft commander, they call them today. But anyway, I get asked lots of times my worst mission. And the one I had, where I had a friend blow up right in front of me, I'd rather not talk about. But another would be the second mission I went to Berlin. Now, the Berlin area was reported to have 2,000 anti-aircraft guns. That was 88, 105s, and 128 millimeters. And we went there. It was a maximum effort where I think pretty much the whole 8th Air Force went there. And there were many targets that were giving Hitler stuff. It wasn't just the city. And we had one particular one that we were supposed to go to. And we headed down the bomb run and looked ahead, and the sky had turned from blue to gray. The anti-aircraft shells were just exploding. It just black like that. And you had to fly into it. Now, the Nazis know that when they fire their shells up, they go up at about 1,000 feet a second. Their rangefinders establish our altitude. So let's say we're at 25,000 feet. We were a lot. So they set their fuses to explode in 25 seconds. Then they say, if we're here, 18 aircraft, where will we be in 25 seconds? And that's their aiming point, so they got this thing. And they'd be awfully accurate. See, they'd been in war for 5 years before we got over there. And they honed down a lot of things and perfected a lot of things. But it didn't do them much good later on. But now I've talked myself right into forgetting what I was going to say.
What about those holes that you counted in that B-17?
That's what I'm getting at. This is a friend of mine here. On this mission, I mentioned that they would fire at 1,000 feet a second. Also, they know that the bombardier is in charge and it's straight and level. No evasive action, no changing altitude, speed, or anything like that. If we do, he's got to do a 360 and come do it all over again because we're up there to bomb a target. And so it doesn't matter where these shells are exploding, straight and level. They put up a barrage box, they called it, ahead of you, maybe 2 or 3 miles, where they'd have a number of cannon firing in one area. And it would almost be a rectangular, terrible looking thing. You'd have to fire right through. And it would, I remember at the time I would really concentrate on flying formation. But yeah, and that one mission, we knew we were getting hit a lot because the plane would be rocking around. You could hear it coming through the plane. The flak. The name flak came from German Flieger aber Kanon. and somebody got the FLAK out of that, so flak was the burst, pieces of steel, everything. But anyway, when we got home, we started counting the holes in the airplane and got tired of counting at 300 holes.
Oh my God.
Nothing violent had been hit, nobody had been hurt, and from flying it, you couldn't tell. Some of the holes were as large as my fist. The vertical stabilizer looked like somebody had taken an ice pick and spent about an hour making, just scattering little holes all over the place. And we didn't finish. We were tired. We didn't get underneath, and it could have been 400 holes. And I heard later another airplane claimed the same thing. The first report came out that 64 B-17s were shot down on that mission. Then that was changed to 48 B-17s and B-24s. Still not good. Then it was published 28. So I figure somewhere around 48 was probably the true information. When I speak of things, when I experienced it, I can say that was true. When I hear things that happened over there, I try to mention that it was things that were reported, and I couldn't say that they were absolutely true. Most of the time they were, but there was exaggeration, and the final reports, of course, were for publication, especially coming back to the United States. They didn't want to say we lost 680 men on one mission, you know. That was my worst mission. There was another where we went to Leipzig to take out a Messerschmitt assembly plant. And we were starting to run down the bomb run. And instead of seeing shells starting to come up in front of you, the first volley was right underneath my airplane. And it bounced the plane with a roar, so unexpected and so violent, it scared me. It scared me beyond my ability to kick it off. And after about, 15 or 20 seconds, I became ashamed of myself. I started talking to myself. I said, no, stop this, stop it. You're up here to prove that you can be part of this operation, and this is not what you're supposed to be doing. None of this white knuckle mode on the controls, you know. And I became angry at what they had done by making me scared. And the shell burst out here. By then, it was coming up normally. And one burst out here, maybe 100 feet, a little higher than we are, about 11 o'clock. And part of the flak, actually 3 holes came into the nose, and a couple other people's pieces bounced off the windshield. I mean, I said, "You missed me!" I knew that shouting at him wasn't going to short but you get tired of feeling like a clay pigeon or a duck in a shooting gallery up there. You can't. You want to throw something at them. And I was angry, and that helped. But yeah. Oh, and then I called the ball turret gunner. It was like this: pilot the ball over. You okay, Art? Yeah, but can you be a little more careful up there? This is where the first volley was, see. Then the radio man also, he says, "I'm okay too, if anybody's interested." They're cracking jokes that we're getting shot at. Wonderful guys. And the radio man would have nothing to do. The B-17, I think, was originally designed to go out all by itself, and it never did. 18, 12, 15, aircraft formation. And we didn't need a radio man. He was to transfer calls back to the base. He had wonderful equipment in case we got in trouble or anything like that. He had bundles of tinfoil like you throw on your Christmas tree. We called it chaff. And the lead aircraft would say rainy day, rainy day. And he was supposed to throw this chaff through a little chute. And when it hit the air, it would explode like that. And these would trickle down and destroy the Germans' radar. And it would help the groups behind us more than it did us. But we had a group doing for us too. And we used to kid him about it. I'd say, Nelson, he'd say, yeah, rainy day. Oh, goody. I didn't kid him, but they'd kid him. He didn't have a thing to do except that.
What about that ME-109 that rolled underneath you?
Oh, the fighter attack one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We did have a fighter. The German Luftwaffe in 1944, General Doolittle did us a great favor. You hear about escort, fighter escort. Well, they did the best they could, but we could be up there with 3,600 gallons of gas to go all the way to Munich and back. A fighter plane could not do that. And not only that, but we're flying at the amazing speed of 150 knots. And they can't go that slow. So when they do escort us, they're up above and they have to S back and forth so they can stay with us. The Germans would know that, and this one day they had the VF-109s come in, and the only similarity between that and our Spitfire, our T-51, was the pointed nose, the inline engine, just instead of a radio engine with a round cylinder showing. And but they'd be up there pretending that they were our escort. We would know right away that it was the Germans. And they went on up ahead, and I wasn't flying at this time. I kept an eye on them up there. And they disappeared, but pretty soon I saw flashes of sunlight. Just flash, flash, flash. And what they were doing was half rolls and coming right at us head on. Right through the formation. 2 planes at a time, firing 20-millimeter cannon at us. And they had range finders on the cannon. See these shells going by. And they took out one plane in the low squadron. But then, here again, they didn't come back. They went on away. Probably went and landed, saved fuel, except one. And he was out there about 1,000 yards off our wing. I was flying number 6 in the high squadron, which is almost the first plane they would want to shoot down. and the radio waist gunner said, we got a bogey out here looking at us. I said, well, keep an eye on him. And sure enough, this guy's thinking, I'm going to take that B-17 down and go home a hero. And we're flying along, and he comes in and starts this, what they call a pursuit curve, where he has to get into guns bearing position. We have an advantage. Our 50 caliber machine guns have a 6,000 yard range. His cannon, 2,000. So we're firing bursts at him as well as the number 3 in the group before he can fire at us. And either we got some hits on him or something, or he said, maybe I better do this tomorrow or something. But he made a fatal mistake. Instead of just peeling off and going away, he inverted and went underneath us. And the ball turret, the right waist said, Art, 7 o'clock low. And Art spun around, and here he comes. Of course, we're going away like this. But he put two bursts of the ball turret into that plane. And instead of inverted, he went down, came up, stalled out, went all the way down, the fighter plane. And he figured he must have hit the pilot because the plane was not being flown. He put in for a kill, as well as the gunners up in number 3. But he had his story, and they just knew that they were firing. So they gave him a half, and they gave them a quarter each. I laugh about it, but killing a guy, but he was trying to kill 10 of us. And that's the way it was. But yeah, that was the major fighter attack. I mentioned General Doolittle. When he got over there, he said that the escort's okay, but it's not good enough. He said that they run out of fuel, they have to leave you alone and come back. Let's go down. The T-47 that's out here, 8 50 caliber machine guns. The T-51 has 6. He said, take those 2 and get out there in the morning and strafe those airfields before they can come up. Destroy them on the ground. And it worked. We didn't get one more fighter attack for the rest of my missions. It was, he saved a lot of lives. It was really smart. But, yeah. Does anyone have a question? Yes.
How often were you guys attacked by fighter planes, enemy fighter planes?
How often?
Yeah. How often were you guys attacked by enemy fighter planes? Was it something that happened often, or only rarely, or moderately?
When I was more or less trying to say that right now, when I was there in 1944, from May to September, that's all it took for my 35 missions. We didn't get many fighter attacks. Doolittle had done his job, you know. But the first guys that went over, the first group of the 8th Air Force pilots, they were getting the full brunt of the 8th Air Force, of the Luftwaffe. And they'd go out and come back with half the airplanes. They had 50% casualties, killed. And no fighter escort. And every mission they flew, they had fighter attacks. But they started going down. See, they had to do 25 missions. They were getting shot down at 13. And the Memphis Belle was the only one that went through all 25. It was so unusual that the King and Queen of England went to their airfield and congratulated them. But when we got some fighters over, like the P-51 and the P-38 and 47, the casualty rate descended. So when I got there, it had been changed from 25 to 30 missions. Halfway through, it descended more, they jumped it up to 35. It was okay. By then, it's hard to explain unless you were there, but it almost became routine. You know, you get up, eat breakfast, briefing, fly over, get shot at, come back. You know, what's new about that? You know, it almost, I don't know if it was courage or what, but it is figured it was going to keep happening. You were going to come back. Yeah. Even with the short missions before D-Day to France, where the Nazis had taken over airfields and things, and just a 4-hour trip, sometimes we wouldn't get too much opposition. You still had the little apprehension, not knowing you were going to come back. You always had that little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of worry. I was always excited, as I am now, to get on an airplane and take off, go into a different dimension, for crying out loud. But your excitement and scared would kind of meld, and you just fly with that. You know, it's part of the job, really. People call us heroes. We never thought of it that way. Your guys that clean windows on skyscrapers, there's danger that comes with the job. We flew over there dropping bombs. There's danger that comes with that. And once you realize that and realize how much trouble you're giving Hitler, it's just like, please go. You didn't know when you were going to fly. That was the thing. You'd go to bed, and like I mentioned, sometimes you'd wake up at 3 in the morning. Other times they just let you sleep. Other groups, other squadrons would be flying that day. The whole group wouldn't fly. It would just be like maybe just one squadron of 18 aircraft. And they would change. We'd go on a 3-day pass now and then. Yeah, it's a good question. But they did, thank goodness they did descend. And we were shooting armor-piercing incendiaries, shells, bullets, where they'd go into the target and explode. And the core was very hard, and it would just keep on going. Pretty dangerous.
You guys, are there any particular like jokes you remember that people swapped? You know, are there any particular jokes that people that would swap that you remember from your time over there?
Swap?
Yeah, like
Jokes.
Any jokes?
Swap stories.
Oh, very little. Yeah, we were kind of private, really. You know, if I had called a meeting and said, let's talk about handling fear, which would be okay to do. Then they would say, uh-oh, look out for him, he's turning coward, you know. Why would he think of having a meeting like that? Yeah, we're pretty private. Every man knew his job, and we expected him to do it correctly. And it worked, because here again, it was a life or death thing. And
I have 2 quick questions.
yes,
So, I already know the answer to this one. The medals you're wearing, there's a red, white, and blue at the top of the medal level closest to your heart. Could you tell the folks what that is?
well, this one,
Yes.
Distinguished Flying Cross.
Could you tell them what that one next to it is with the oblique clusters? I already know what it is, but tell them.
It's the Air Medal, and each cluster says that I was given that medal again. So
Okay.
instead of getting extra medals, I get these little clusters. So I was awarded the Air Medal 5 times. And I may as well go on for a little bit. This is the campaign, European campaign ribbon with 4 battle stars. It says that I took part in every campaign from the original Greece to the defeat of Germany. Not that I was there all the time, but the campaigns I was involved in.
So I have one more, because I know we're almost out of time. This is a smart-ass question. You're 99 3/4 years age, right? Tell me the truth. Did you or did you not fly a jet in this past year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have macular degeneration. My commercial license is still good, but I'm not supposed to fly because I couldn't pass the physical.
But you flew a jet.
But yeah, we have a friend in Chicago who has a Cessna citation, and he flew us, a couple of us, I don't remember who, but down to Clemson University, that wanted me to address their graduating ROTC corps. And he let me take off and climb. And then at a certain altitude, when you're going up, you have to go on autopilot. It's the law. I went all the way to 41,000 feet, leveled off, and went 500 miles an hour. That's wonderful. That's the first time I've ever been in a jet. But my gosh, push the throttles forward and you just go back like that. Get down the runway, and I couldn't see the airspeed or anything. My eyes, and of course the instrumentation is entirely different than what I was used to. But my seat at the pants said, this airplane ought to be flying. I pulled back. just a wonderful experience.
Wow.
You know, I do it again, too. The man that's asking these questions, I'm gonna nail you. He is a
Remember, I'm
retired,
a friend.
that's David Wagner, he's a retired lieutenant colonel who flew helicopters in Vietnam. And if I have the story right, 2 pilots would get in this helicopter. One would fly it, the other, they'd go into a fire zone, the other would jump out and grab a wounded man and bring him back, and they'd take him to the hospital
That's pretty cool.
and come back, switching. But then the other guy would be the pilot, and he would have to would go out and pick up a wounded man, and pretty close,
Pretty close.
over and over
But
again.
we got some other vets in here. There's a Loach driver back there. Loach, light observation helicopter pilot. Different war.
And he has a Purple Heart.
Like the stuff that Dick talked about is, you've probably all seen the movie The Memphis Belle. So watching those guys ride in the Jeep in the morning to get on that aircraft. I can tell you that it was the same feeling walking to the helicopter in the morning. You always wondered, what will this day hold? And there were days,
Yeah.
some of us didn't come back, but it's been my honor and privilege to get to know him, and yes, we do swap stories.
Well, we do
To me,
now,
to just,
I probably didn't understand your question. I thought you meant it then.
no,
Oh, now, yeah, oh.
You know, like joke swapping when you guys were on the base, like are there any particular, like any running jokes you guys would have going, like about the Germans or the?
Serious back then.
And feel free to leave if you wish, when people.
You should say that you're retired Air Force pilot also.
Captain,
With, when you were in formation, was it all visual, or were you in IMC, or visual conditions? or-
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's visual. We have the lead, and number 2 would be high, and 3 would be high. 4 would be underneath the lead, and then same thing. You fly high off of your leader.
Okay.
And fighter aircraft, you're flying low. But I don't know why, except that it was a little easier to look down a little bit on a big airplane, seeing what he was going to do. But,
What kind of spacing, how far apart would you be?
well, I would almost go wingtip to wingtip. But it still puts your fuselage is 100 feet away.
Mhm.
See, and you're not. It's not this. It's up here.
So like altitude stag.
Yeah. But that's pretty tight, really. Any tighter than that, you're going to be covering his machine guns. And if we get a fighter attack, if they fire, they're going to hit you. And that's silly, but so we have to keep at a certain distance. And the main thing was that not to be doing this. Come home with no gasoline.
Question. When you were in formation, did you communicate between airplanes?
No, none. None at all. It was only the group leader that was allowed to talk. Unless something real violent happened, and where he should know. But all the messages would come from him. Like the rainy day that I mentioned. He said, we got bandits around, keep an eye out. So, in other words, it had been reported that the Luftwaffe is out looking for planes to attack. Things like that. And inside the plane also, not just common talk between the crew. Not good. Because here again, if you push down on the voice button, we had throat mics were very nice. They would just wrap around your throat. You had control of that airways inside the airplane. Nobody could interrupt you. It wasn't a case where a lot of people could talk at once. Only one man could talk at once. And if some guy's on there giving some kind of oratory, and you get a fighter attack, you don't have the rest of your crew able to say, we got a fighter attack coming in. Get off the air. All they could do is go hitting over the head. Good questions. You got any more?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sure. I don't know how relevant this is, but how was it to have President Roosevelt as a commander-in-chief?
Well, I thought he was pretty special.
Yeah.
You know, he gave our crew the Presidential Unit Citation for accuracy in bombing. I thought that was pretty nice.
Yeah.
But no, we knew very little about politics. Unlike today, if we didn't go to the movies and see the news or read a newspaper all the time, you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 1944, 78, 79 years ago. And I want to tell one more thing. Coming back, when I came back on the Queen Elizabeth, the latest one, the large one, 3,000 men on board. Did we have any bands or people clapping or anything? No. But when we looked and saw the Statue of Liberty, that took care of the whole thing.
No.
And didn't matter whether you're an officer or what, I had a duffel bag on one shoulder and carrying a bag down here. We walked down on the ground and looking for the bus that was going to take us to Camp Shanks. And there were about 3 or 4 of us. A newsboy came up. Said, "Paper, mister," to me, 8 or 9 years old. And I said, "I can't read." He said, "Well, you can look at the pictures, ain't it, you big shrimp?" That's the last time I've ever been called a big shrimp. That was my welcome to New York City. We started laughing, you know. I would have liked to have given him a nickel or a dime at that time, a lot of money. But New York had these paper boys, child labor, running around with papers. But I don't want to keep you here, and the messages are good, but I'm through, unless you want to have more time.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Thank you.
What did you guys run any missions in preparation for D-Day? Like, did you do any missions that specifically were designed to assist the invasion of D-Day?
On D-Day, we went to briefing. The commanding officer came out and he said, "We have something special. I don't want to hear anybody shouting or anything." I was a little worried about some spy might be on your airfield. And when he announced it, everybody would have jumped up and said, "Yeah, you know," but that was, nobody had any idea it was that day. It was kept a very good secret. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. I just wondered, were you originally from Seattle?
No.
Okay.
Niagara Falls, New York.
Okay.
Because I had two of my mother's brothers were B-17 in World War II. Bob Tobin was one. He was a pilot in his final physical. He had broken his arm playing football and he couldn't go straight. It had a foot. So he couldn't be a pilot, but he was made a bombardier. And they got shot up and lived in, I think it was Switzerland. There was a neutral.
Yeah.
And so they spent the remainder of the war drinking German beer, and they couldn't leave. And but
Excuse
anyway,
me, Tom, I'm gonna
thank
go
you
around this way.
very much.
Yeah.
I really
Okay.
Was your DFC for a particular mission or cumulative?
No, it was more or less doing 35 minutes.
Yeah.
The thing I like, I got a commendation,
That's very
superior
good.
airmanship. That meant a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. My husband was an Air Force pilot as well.
That gives me a thrill to know that.
Well, can I give you a hug?
Oh, yeah.
It was just wonderful hearing you. Just wonderful.
This makes it all worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
When's your husband fly?
C-141.
Hey, it's me again. That was Captain Nelms' first presentation since the pandemic. I took my 5-year-old to see him before the pandemic in October 2019, and for those of you like myself who have just unmeasurable respect for the greatest generation and the sacrifices they made during World War II, he is everything that you remember, everything you'd expect a member of the greatest generation to be. Kind, positive, charismatic, all those things that you may remember from the elders when you were growing up. If you're around my age, Captain Nelms absolutely is. So if you are watching this around 2023, Captain Nelms still gives presentations. Like I said, this was his first one in 3 years, but I think he might start giving them regularly again at the Seattle Museum of Flight. I will put a link in the description of this video if you're in the greater Seattle area and you want to check. They update it monthly, those presentations. Thank you.